3 hooks to start this story. Why does she start noticing you when you finally go silent? Why does she begin to feel the void only after you stop chasing? Why can't she stop watching you now, when you've already walked away? This isn't about manipulation, it's about emotional truth. When you pull your energy back, you don't just disappear. You create a space she's not ready to fill. You weren't everything to her, but you were the one thing she thought would always be there until you weren't. This video unpacks the 10 emotional stages she silently goes through after losing your attention. A journey she never meant to take, but one you must understand if you want to remain grounded in your peace, your power, and your purpose. Stage 1. The sudden void. It doesn't crash in like a storm. It creeps in softly. The good morning texts stop. The late night replies that once felt comforting vanish. Your presence, steady, masculine, stabilizing, is no longer there. You didn't leave in anger or drama. You left with stillness. A final kind of calm that whispers, I won't give where I'm not valued. At first, she shrugs it off. He's probably busy, he'll come back. She laughs, she pretends, but the silence lingers until it becomes deafening. She reaches for her phone, expecting your name to light up, but there's nothing. That's when an unfamiliar unease creeps in. Not just confusion, but a subtle panic, because your attention, your calm, your emotional gravity, they grounded her in ways she never realized. Now that you're gone, she's drifting, and here's the uncomfortable truth. Presence goes unnoticed. When it's constant, but absence demands attention, and if your presence was rooted, steady, and sincere, your silence now becomes deafening. It brews inside her. Quietly, daily, she reads old texts, scrolls through your photos, checks your stories anonymously. She wonders if someone else has your attention. She replays your last words, trying to find a hint. The question she never expected finally rises. Did I lose him for good? She'll never say it. Not yet. She'll post, she'll smile, but underneath it all, she knows from a Stoic lens, your withdrawal wasn't revenge. It was clarity. Marcus Aurelius said, just do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. You stopped giving endlessly. Not because you were angry, but because you've grown. You've stepped away not to be seen, but to rebuild. Quietly, steadily, intentionally. And soon she enters stage 2, where your silence doesn't just echo, it starts pulling her closer. When you go silent, you don't just disappear, you evolve. She might not admit it, but you are no longer the man she once walked away from. You've changed. You've grown stronger, more grounded, more focused, and more fulfilled. Not in spite of the distance, but because of it. And the irony? It's your calm, steady detachment that now speaks the loudest. You're not making noise. You're making progress. You didn't set out to be unforgettable. But by letting go and moving forward without bitterness, that's exactly what you've become in her mind. So here's the question worth asking. Are you living to be seen, or are you living to evolve? Are you showing up online to express your peace, or secretly hoping she's watching? Because the truth is, your silence, when born from real growth, becomes the most powerful statement of all. And yes, someone, maybe her, is watching it unfold. Your new posture, your stillness, your focused direction, all of it is becoming a mirror. One she didn't expect, and one that might be making her reflect more than she wants to. And now we step into stage 3, where her thoughts no longer quiet, where your silence doesn't just create distance, it becomes a storm in her mind. No messages, no check-ins, not even a subtle sign that you're coming back. And suddenly, that silence, it's not just confusing, it's haunting. Let's continue and explore how that internal spiral begins to unravel. While she's still playing emotional chess, you've already stepped off the board. Not to win her attention, not to manipulate her next move, but to grow. While she's busy strategizing her next emotional move, trying to recreate old patterns, you're already living a new life. Steady, composed, and detached in the best way. And ironically, that's what makes you unforgettable. Before we move on, take a pause. Have you ever been in this quiet, emotional standoff, where you had every reason to react, but chose restraint instead? If that resonates, leave a comment, or simply type peace over reaction. Your clarity might light the way for someone else in this same journey. Number 5. The comparison phase begins. Now she's going out more, putting effort into how she looks, wearing that perfume you once complimented. She's talking to someone new, someone funny, quick to flatter, always available. On the surface, it looks like she's fine, maybe even thriving, but something feels off. The laughter doesn't hit as deep. The compliments sound rehearsed. The conversations fall short, too perfect, too polished, too shallow. Even in the comfort of distraction, she starts to feel something missing. And that void has your name on it. You didn't try to be the center of attention, but you anchored the room. You didn't talk over her. You truly listened. You didn't try to match her energy. You brought your own, calm and grounded. You didn't perform, you aligned. You lived by principle, not pretense. And now your absence is louder than anyone else's presence. She starts comparing, quietly, constantly, the way this new guy speaks too much but says little. The way he tries too hard but connects so little. And deep down, she starts to see what she never admitted back then. You weren't flashy. You were solid. You weren't trying to be special. You simply were. You didn't leave a memory. You left a mark. A quiet standard she now realizes, too late, that no one else meets. And just when the ache of comparison becomes too heavy to ignore, she enters the next phase. Number 6. The nostalgia flood. A wave of memories, once background noise, now become front and center. When the nostalgia rushes in like a flood, you don't drown. You remain still, like a stone in the river. You don't resist the memories, but you don't live in them either. You see them for what they are. Echoes, not directions. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "And your thoughts, they are not fixated on what was, they are anchored in what is." So when she casually brings up the past, you don't flinch. You don't chase the feeling. You smile, you nod, you hold the memory like a photograph. Something to appreciate, something to return to, because you've chosen peace over fantasy, presence over longing. You carry the wisdom, not the wound. And it's that quiet clarity, that firm refusal to be pulled backward, that shakes her most. While she's still spinning in loops of what if and remember when, you're firmly planted in now. That's the paradox. The less you cling, the more she feels what she lost. And that memory? It doesn't fade. It lingers. Not in your mind, but in hers. Number 7, the fake indifference phase. Suddenly her feed lights up. Smiles wider than usual. Captions like, healed and unbothered. Energy unmatched. New faces, rooftop parties, night scenes. Her life, at least online, looks like a victory lap. As if letting you go was her best decision yet. But behind the filters and perfect lighting, there's something she won't post. When the lights dim and the noise dies down, she scrolls. She watches your stories with the volume off and brightness down. She rereads old messages, trying to remember how it once felt. She compares the glow she's projecting to the warmth she used to receive from your calm presence. And it doesn't match. The smile in her photo, a little too staged. The caption, a little too forced. Because underneath it all, she's not just thinking of you, she's questioning herself. Did I misread the connection? Was he really that calm, or did I just assume he'd wait forever? She expected you to break, to double text, to fold. That's how it usually works, but you didn't. You didn't react, you didn't fake healing. You actually did the work, not to prove anything, but because you wanted truth. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." And now you're rich, not in attention, but in inner peace. You're not craving her approval. You're not competing for a scene in her story. You've stepped into your own, and while she's trying to convince the world she doesn't care, she's haunted by the fact that you actually don't. Not in bitterness, but in liberation. And just when the pressure of pretending gets too much, she slips. And that leads us to number 8, the oops message. That wasn't an accident at all. Your unshaken silence didn't trigger a reaction. It created a void she can't fill. The man she once knew would have responded in seconds, but the man you are now, he chooses stillness over sentiment. That restraint, that clarity, it speaks louder than any reply ever could. Because now, your peace is not a privilege you trade for temporary connection. It's your way of life. And the very moment you stopped chasing, she realized the door she once walked through so freely is now guarded by a man who finally knows his worth. Number 9, the emotional outburst. When the hints no longer work, when the sultry photos fall flat, when the wrong text goes unanswered, emotion grabs the wheel. That composed mask she wore, meant to convince you and herself she's fine, begins to crack. And suddenly it happens, an emotional outburst. Sometimes it's a 2 a.m. message, raw and angry, laced with words she swore she'd never say. Other times it's a tearful voice note filled with regret and confusion. Maybe it's a stream of accusations. You never cared. You've changed. You're so cold now. But here's what most men miss. This isn't about closure. It's not about truth. It's chaos. Finally, breaking through the wall she tried so hard to hold up. Your absence didn't just pass unnoticed. It created a vacuum, one she can't escape. She tried to be cool, tried to convince herself and everyone else that she's over it. But the truth is, your silence is too loud, your detachment too real, your emotional stillness too disruptive. Now all the feelings she buried come flooding out, unfiltered, unedited, uncontrollable. But the biggest shift is you, the man who used to fold at the sound of her tears, the man who once felt responsible for her pain, the man who would have rushed to fix, to comfort, to prove his care. He's no longer there. Because true Stoic strength isn't coldness. It's clarity. You've learned not to drown in someone else's emotional waves. You've built your foundation on stillness, not on reaction. And outbursts? They no longer shake you. They remind you of how far you've come, why you left the chaos behind. So when she lashes out, you don't argue, you don't defend, you don't flinch. You stay calm, you stay grounded, you stay in your lane, not because you don't care, but because you've learned how to care without collapsing. And as she cries, rages, or begs for a reaction, you give her what her chaos can't feed on: silence, stillness, space. And in that moment, you don't just protect your peace, you free yourself entirely. When a woman realizes she lost the man who didn't chase validation but embodied true value, she's left with a void no one else can fill. You didn't beg to be remembered. You didn't fight to stay relevant. You chose clarity. You chose calm. You chose you. If today's message struck a chord within you, whether it stirred a memory, reinforced a lesson, or reminded you of how far you've come, please give this video a thumbs up. It's a small gesture, but it helps this kind of grounded, meaningful content reach others who might need it. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Have you ever chosen silence over reaction? How did it shift your relationships or your self-worth? You can write a full reflection or just type, "I choose stillness. I no longer seek validation." Your words might be the light someone else needs to see. And don't forget, there are recommended videos on your screen right now. Each one is designed to deepen your understanding of Stoicism, relationships, and personal growth. So keep watching, keep evolving, and always remember, peace isn't just a destination. It's how you walk every step, every day, with power and presence.